Welcome to the Collective Talk podcast, where we share reflections on prayer, family, and ministry. On this episode, I'm so excited because we're going to share on marriage, dating, and relationships, which is always so exciting. And then we have special guests with us here today, Jimmy and Mariana Darts, and who I'm so excited for you guys. You probably already know them. And then my husband, Pastor Mark Francey, who's the pastor of Oceans Church here in Orange County, California. Can you help me welcome them all to the show? I'm so glad you guys are all here.
Thank you. This is a blast. You guys are awesome. So if I know you're doing a podcast, I know it's something we want to be on and be a part of.
Yes,
So
that's
thanks for hitting us
awesome.
up.
We're so glad that you said yes. And I just was so inspired by your guys' story. And then can you share a little bit about how you guys met? Just about like the dating process, how you guys met, any of that background. I'd love any of that information. Yeah,
absolutely. You want me to start or?
Yeah.
Basically, I was just living out here in California, and I had thought about coming to Oceans Church a lot, but for some reason I never came here or made it out here. And I got invited to like speak at this little church rally thing in Kansas City for the Send, like this pre-event. And I was like, man, I don't want to go to Kansas City. Like, I don't want to do that. And then I'm just sitting there and I was about to say no. And I'm like, crap, like I don't ever really look for opportunities or try to reach out. A lot of times I just kind of see what comes to me and that the Lord will bring the right opportunities to me. And so I'm like, crap, like maybe there's something divine there. Maybe God has something for me there or to speak to those people. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it. Like I'll go to Kansas City and I'll speak at this thing. And so me and my friend Gabe, we drove from California to Kansas City to this event. Oh, wow. And the whole way I was just making jokes. I was like, I think I might meet my wife there. Like, I think it might happen. And, just like every Christian kid, anytime they go to an event,
they go to a conference. Yeah.
And so I got there, was about to get on stage and speak. And there was maybe, 200 people in the audience at this kind of little church. And I just saw like her hair, like it was this big, like afro, like curly thing, you know? And I saw her face turn around and she was probably 50 yards from me, but just a little cute face I could see. I was just like, and I just to myself, I was like, Jesus, please let me marry her. And I literally just shot it out, like threw a little dart. And sure enough, I get up and I speak on stage and I get off. And I'm not a kind of guy that's going to go and like flirt with someone or try to be cool. Like I just want it to happen naturally and be normal. And so I was like lingering in the hallway a little bit longer than usual. And she came across me and we started talking. And from there it kind of was history. And she said she was from Palm Springs, which I couldn't believe because that's where like I vacationed my entire childhood.
No way.
And she worked at a hotel that we also vacationed at. So I'm like, oh my gosh. And
we just had a lot of like commonalities. And
that's
I mean, from my point of view, it was, I had been like driving from Palm Springs to come to Oceans.
Yes.
So I
just a church-aholic.
Yeah. How long is that drive too, by the way?
Yeah, like an hour and a half or two, depending on traffic. Sometimes
and how fast you drive.
No doubt.
Carpool lane with a
old lead foot.
Old lead foot.
I had one, but
Yeah.
I love it.
So I would just like come out here because I was just so hungry for the Lord. And in Palm Springs, there was, I had a friend group, I had a church that I would serve at, but coming over here was just like such a new experience. And just seeing more people on fire, young people, it was just like, I need to be here. So I would kind of come for just different events and for church. And then, I heard about the Send and I was like, I need to go. I just felt like led to it. And I had just like started a new job and I was like, I don't know if they're going to let me like go. But then the next day I asked like the manager and then he like got fired or something. And so I was like, it just like kind of lined up where I asked the other like manager and he was like, yeah, you can come on, right? Like you can go. And I was like, okay. So I booked my flight. I literally flew from Palm Springs to Kansas City by myself. And I met like my other friends that were going to be there.
You're not doing that again. I won't let her go to the store alone. She's too little. Someone could take her like that.
Too little.
Funny.
That's so funny.
So I just met all of my friends there and I was just on fire for Jesus. I just wanted more of him. So I wasn't even like expecting like anything, a relationship. I also like just remember when I first got there, we were just worshiping and I was just like, oh, I just don't want to look to my left or to my right. Like, I just want to focus on you, Jesus, like right now. Like, there's so many like kids from all over the world. I was like, there's so many people, but I was like, no, like, let me just focus on you. Like, this is the moment. Like, I thought to myself, I'll probably be single for like another 2 years. Like, I'm not looking for anything. And then, the next day I met Jimmy. I got into that, like, it was like a small church where there was like a lot of people speaking, and I was already late. So when I got there to the seat, I remember like the Lord was like, turn back. Because, when you first get into a different like building, you're just like looking around, seeing who's in the crowd and seeing what's going on. So when the Lord was like, turn back, I was like, okay, like, and then he just kept telling me turn back. So I just kept turning to my right, and I guess that's when he saw me.
Wow.
No
So
way.
A third look did it for me.
Look out. Look out.
But like, I had no idea. Like, I saw like a bunch of kids and people, but I was like, I didn't think anything of it. And then he got.
What you talking about? You didn't see a big man?
Yeah. I love it.
So then he got on stage, and it was like a panel of 4 guys, and I knew the other guys because they like kind of spoke about Jesus, like spread the gospel through TikTok. And you do too, honey. You do it in a different.
I knew the other guys. They love Jesus. There was this one guy.
There was this other guy character.
So I didn't know what you did specifically, and it wasn't until after they like asked him to pray out, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" Because he was like, "Pops, pray." Like he was just praying, but like saying, "Pops, like bless these people," like all this stuff, and I was like, "Who is?" Like he just sounds so interesting. But I was like thinking nothing of it, and then after we connected, and I didn't know that he
you said
prayed
I
that.
looked a little cute.
You were cute.
My man.
You were good looking. I had to give you that. So, but it kind of all fell through and like together, and it just was crazy.
So did you guys talk after that?
Yeah, we were talking in the lobby, and hey, I know she saw something because on the drive there to Kansas City, usually when I'm on a road trip, I'll listen to maybe 30% worship music, 70% like not secular music, but like, folk music or old music, whatever, and I feel pretty good, right? But on this trip specifically, the kid I was driving with, for some reason, wanted to listen to like 99% Christian worship music, and 1% it was like Mario dubstep or something like that. And so anyways, the whole drive, I was like, this is crazy. Like, when you're in a car for 30 hours listening to that, my spirit was so alive. I felt so good. It was like the best I'd ever felt in my whole life.
Wow.
My mind was so clear. My heart was so clear. It was like I had just got saved again, and I was so on fire. And so when I met her, it was like at the peak of how I've ever felt. And so the Lord really was just like, wanted to bring healthy people together at the most healthy time.
So awesome.
I totally relate to that, just because taking a step of faith of getting on a plane to go to a state that I've never even gone to just be hungry for Jesus and learn and grow and be with other like-minded people. It was like, I just felt like, okay, God, like I'm on my mission right now, and it was just so fun to meet him and be in that same, level. And,
that's amazing how God just aligned your guys' paths. And it's just crazy. I think when we get to heaven, we're all going to be like, how did God do that? But it's just so amazing that you just got on that plane and then you guys met at that place. That's just amazing. Like how me and Mark met too. It's just, he moved from California to Idaho. He didn't even want to live with his dad, they didn't have a good relationship at the time. So to see how God works, he works all things for the good, and so I think for those who love him. And so I just think it's crazy how you guys met. That's amazing. But I want to hear, I think you guys honestly are the cutest couple. I just want to hear Mariana, how did Jimmy propose? How was that whole...
Almost broke my ankle.
Oh, no.
And drained my account.
My man.
So, I mean, we had been dating already probably a year and a half. And so I was very much of like, okay, like, we've talked about it. We've had that conversation multiple times. And I didn't know when it was coming. Like, he was like, I'm not saying anything. We're not, we're not planning anything. Usually nowadays it's like, I want it to be here and this time with these people, But I really trusted him in what, he would plan, because every like event, every birthday, he just goes, does more than I could ever think or imagine. So
You died one time.
Oh,
her one birthday, I took her up in a hot air balloon.
Yes.
No.
Then went snowboarding, and I accidentally ran into her spine, and she was in the hospital. But
Oh, no.
the Lord healed
Wait,
her.
you went to the
So
hospital?
Yeah,
I'm good at planning things, but sometimes they don't go right.
Yeah.
All right,
I
get
mean,
back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something, but I'm all right. Nothing happened.
Oh, good.
The Holy Spirit was in there with me. But what was I saying?
Was it New York that you guys got?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I knew that it probably was coming.
Yeah.
But I had no idea when or where, what time. And so he was like, he's writing a book, and he was like, oh, I'm going to New York for a meeting, and then we can go to Minnesota to be with my family. And I was like, oh, perfect. Like, I had already saved like all of the like little places to go, the coffee shops, or like all the little videos on Instagram you just see. I'm like, I have them all saved. This is where we're gonna go. And so I had like my little itinerary, and I was so excited. And then like I was just like, why is he so in a hurry, like, to get to ice skating? Like, I was just like,
Well, I had a little stage there too for a week. I was a little distracted. I was always playing these little video games on my iPhone, which helped me, because she goes, last thing, I thought you were going to propose that day, because you were like at 10:30 playing a game on your phone.
No.
So
Like,
it did help me.
I was getting ready, we were just, figuring out like what we're gonna do for the day, and he was just playing video games, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't expect anything
phone.
of
It
it.
doesn't really count.
Yeah. And yeah, he was just like, just amazing. He was, so on top of everything. And we were in New York, like I said, and we went to go get a coffee, and then he's like, okay, I gotta go like get a jacket, because I don't have anything to wear. Like, he was wearing a hoodie, and it was like so cold in New York.
Yeah.
And so he goes into Ralph Lauren, buys something, and then we're like, okay, we have to rush to get to the ice skating rink. And I was like, okay. So we're literally running. I don't know why every time we're in New York, we're running to get somewhere.
No way.
Like a movie.
It's an honor Home Alone.
Honestly, like, that's how it was. And we rush in, we get in, and we're just ice skating with a bunch of people. It was like grandmas are falling over, kids are like, running and ice skating. And then, I kind of was like thinking maybe it would happen here, but it was just, nothing was adding up. Like, I mean, there's no photographer. There's so many people around. It didn't seem like the right time or the right place. And then they were like, our hour had passed, for ice skating. They're like, okay, we're going to clean the ice. And I was like, okay, we got to go. We got to get off the ice. And he's like, no, let's stay. I'm like, what do you mean we gotta go? And then this girl asked me to take a picture of her and her boyfriend. I'm like, okay, yeah. And as he gets down on one knee, and then I'm like, oh my gosh,
oh, that guy
so
did?
he didn't pay the hour to rent it out to propose, but he's quick snuck in the verse.
So then I didn't think like he stole
You paid for 2 engagements that day.
Oh,
my.
But there was people crowded still on the ice. The security was chewing him out, and there was no song playing, so it wasn't as special.
And they were like 18. They looked so
God
young.
bless
I was
him
like,
if he's watching. But,
they were so young. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I was like, so when
did she say yes?
She did say yes.
Okay.
So when that happened, I was like, oh, it's not gonna happen to me, because he
stole your moment.
Yeah. But I was like, okay, let's get off now. Like, the only reason why we're on the ice is because I was helping this girl take a picture, and so now we're getting off, and he's like, no, let's stay. And I was like, what do you mean let's stay? I can't stay. They're like, but then like he was talking to the guy that was working there, so I'm like, okay, something's going on. Mm-hmm. Then they started playing our song, and then I'm just like, we're just holding each other, like just hugging in the middle of the ice. And then he's just like stops hugging me. He's just like telling me how much he loves me and different things. And then
the song was
playing.
Oh, wait,
song?
what song?
It is I Will Follow You by, I don't know how to say his name, Tubalus?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a random song, but it gets me going.
It gets me going.
It's so beautiful. And then he got down when he almost fell. But then, the shock of him proposing, but then also there's like thousands of people watching us from above.
Tell them where it was.
At the ice skating rink in the Rockefeller.
That's
So special.
amazing.
So it was a lot of people watching, and the crowd went wild. And
That's
it was
They were kind of like confused, like, why didn't we kiss? Like, they were like, oh,
yeah,
they're
right,
trying to figure.
Like, what is this, a brother and sister here? Like, what's going on? Then we ran off the ice.
Yeah.
There was a photographer. He was hidden in the crowd.
He was
I
hidden.
love it.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was so
oh
cute.
my
We went on a little horse
gosh.
ride through the park.
I love it.
Carriage
Right
ride.
after that, you
Yes.
did.
So it was
No.
like a carriage
Oh,
ride,
the carriage
Central
rides.
Park.
Yes.
And it was just so beautiful to have that like time with each other
Wow.
after that. We were just both in shock.
And in New York,
Yeah.
on Rockefeller, like on the ice skating rink.
During
how?
Christmas, yeah.
During Christmas.
It was so
like,
special.
And I remember me and Mark were watching just through social media, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
You told me it was gonna be that day.
Yeah.
So I was praying for you.
Yeah, man. As soon as we went around the corner, like on the main street there, and we just saw the tree, we were still like 100 yards from it. I started like crying.
We both started
All right,
crying.
Yeah.
This is
That's-
good. This
Wow.
is no backing out. We're all in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to commend you guys because obviously we've known you now
Yes.
for a while, and I remember meeting you, Mariana, and I'm like, I remember hearing there's a girl driving to our church from Palm Springs.
Yes.
And I'm like, that is wild. That's like 4 hours of driving every Sunday. So I'm like, this girl obviously loves the Lord. And when I found out that you were the one that started dating Jimmy, I'm like, that makes so much sense. Because I meet Jimmy, and obviously, I know a lot of people just know you, from your videos on Instagram, social media, that you're the nicest person in the world. That we're praying in that Adidas slide contract. Everyone loves dancing in
So
the
if you're
slides.
Adidas
Come on.
listening, come on.
Hey,
Sign
I'd
'em
probably
up.
rather be sponsored by Del Taco. I love the fish tacos there. Yeah.
No doubt.
Delta.
They're 2 for
Tacos
1.
every day.
2 for 1. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not odds with each other. But no, I remember meeting you, Jimmy, and just like your heart was so pure, such a genuine. Both of you guys had such a genuine fire for God. And then as I got to know you guys, and you told me your convictions had such high convictions, it really just stood out to me. And so, I got to, we did premarital counseling with you guys, talking to you about your wedding, got to officiate your wedding. And when you told me, like, we've been dating for 1.5 years, we've never kissed. And I'm like, wow, tell me more. That's amazing. I mean, Rachelle couldn't stop kissing me. I mean, I'm like, my gosh, that was a tough thing to do,
Oh
so
my.
Still, also.
I mean,
Oh,
still,
yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
she
yeah.
can't keep her hands off
Oh
me.
my.
But
As you should.
so I remember just hearing your story, and I'm like, what a testament.
Yes.
And I guess just for those watching, to be at your wedding, to know that you guys have traveled the country together, have been to some beautiful places, have had all the opportunity in the world to obviously enjoy dating each other, get to know each other, even romantically to that degree. But for you to set that standard of going, hey, we have a conviction, we want our first kiss to be in our wedding ceremony. Yeah. And I told you this even at the day of the wedding. I'm like, I don't usually ever get nervous to do weddings, but there was such a holy environment. It felt like the kiss of heaven was on your wedding because there was such a environment there. Like God was just so pleased that I don't think you have to do what you did, but I think God honored it because you guys were willing to go, hey, we're going to save the honey for the honeymoon. And it was special. It was honestly one of the more sweet environments I've ever been in officiating a wedding. So I'm really proud of you guys, but I know a lot of people know you, different ways. But as your pastor, as your friends, I want to just commend you guys because I think that you guys really are, you're showing the next generation there is a way to have fun. There is a way to excel in life, in business, in ministry, but also to have romance and have a dynamic marriage, but to do it the right way. So I want to commend you guys for doing that.
So powerful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was so fun meeting her and she was down to do that. It was crazy because I had, talked to, probably 8, 10 different girls throughout my life that I maybe thought about dating or whatever. And it seemed like anytime I brought that up, it would just end the whole situation. I'd be like, Jimmy, remember, don't say this. Wait till you get him on the hook, then tell him. And I'd be like, right in the getting to know phase, I'm like, and I don't want to kiss till I get married. And they're just like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, I really seriously thought about changing my conviction. Thought about it, and I was like, no, I feel like it's a good filter for whoever God has for me. That's the person that's going to say yes and respond to that,
Wow. How old were you, Jimmy, when that happened, that you felt like that conviction came?
Yeah, so when I got saved, I was like 17, 18 years old in high school, and it was all, wild conversion, I don't know, people maybe have heard the story. My sock got healed in my drawer, that whole thing. I had horrible scoliosis. My leg was shorter than my other one. A guy in Hawaii prayed. My leg grew out. Scoliosis was healed instantly. And in that moment, it was really like, okay, well, like, you know, there's a way to, you know, live and have God in your life and invite him in and have the scriptures. Then there's a time where you're like, wait, this is really real. Yeah. Like, it's not just healthy to do. Like, everyone knows it's good to go work out at the gym, but it's like everyone knows, like, if you follow the morals and stuff of the Bible, it's gonna benefit your life. Right. But yeah, I was like 19 years old after I had done my first year in Hawaii. I was in Australia at a Bible school, and I was there, and I don't know if it was a roommate or something was playing a video, but I heard this guy talking about like not kissing until marriage, and I was like, what the heck? That's like the dumbest thing I ever heard of. Like, what are you talking about? Like, all right, like there's already enough rules to follow in the Word. Like, we don't need any more, you know? And really, that's how I think at first my relationship with the Lord was a little bit, you know, it's what's it say? The beginning of wisdom is the fear of God in a healthy way. And so a lot of my initial walk was like, man, I don't want to mess up. Like, God is so mighty and big, like, you know, walking on this fine line. But when I was in Australia, I found out about the secret place and spending time with God. And that's really when my like salvation and my relationship with God switched from what I have to do to what I get to do. Yeah. And it almost felt like, you know, before I had a revelation, it was like I felt obligated to live righteously. But after I had a revelation of God's goodness, I realized I got to live righteously. So good. And my taste buds changed. It wasn't that I didn't do things because I wanted to, but I knew it wasn't good. It was, I actually don't even want to do that. That's great. So because I have so much trust in my Father, so much trust in God. If I can do whatever he says the right way, I know it's not going to hurt me. Yeah. He's the one person that I trust even more than myself. Wow. And so I was like, man, all right. So this guy's name was Dan Moeller, and he talked about waiting to kiss until marriage. And he talked about in the Bible, just, you know, a verse that he referenced was like, you know, it's not good that a man touch a woman. And then if you look that in the Greek and stuff, it was saying like with desire, right? So obviously if I like, you know, hold my girlfriend's hand or touch, it's like, it's more like, man, it's not saying that it's definitely sin, but it's just not ideal to touch a woman with desire if you're not in covenant with her because of what that can lead to. Yeah. And so one of my favorite quotes of all time is like, I don't fall off cliffs because I don't go near the edge. And so I was like, man, I don't like this whole teaching about no kiss before marriage. I think it's so intense. But deep down in my heart, I was like, I feel like it's really helpful, and I feel like it is true. So I would sit in my little prayer closet and listen to the video on repeat for like probably 600 times. I listened to it.
Oh my gosh!
It was like I forced my
Mariana just found out.
She just found out.
Yeah, I was like, I forced myself to adapt it. And then once I had the belief, I carried this around for years, you know, for probably, like 7 years. I was like, I'm not going to kiss till I get married, right? But that's the thing. Your talk is cheap until you're actually in a situation. So I've never had a girlfriend in my life. And so I'm like, man, like I've been telling everyone I'm going to do this, and like, what's going to happen when it actually the rubber meets the road and I have a beautiful girl I'm with? Like, is it going to be so hard or whatever? And, you know, when I found out and I told her I want to do that and she felt the same way, it was the easiest thing on the planet. Come on, Jimmy. It wasn't because I was unattracted to her or didn't want to. It was so easy because I just had such a trust in God where I'm like, one of my friends, sorry, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent,
I love this.
One of my close friends in when I went to school in Minnesota in high school, whatever, his parents had a house next to my grandparents on the lake. And it was a beautiful home, but the builder messed up like a half an inch or something on the foundation. And so the house, they ended up finishing it, but it's the oddest house. When you're in there, you're like, is this a 2-story house? Is it a 1-story? Like, it's just the stairs are just messed up, and it's really odd because the foundation was off. And so I think people hearing this, like, like you can have a blast dating, you can have a blast in friendship.
So good.
And if you're going to get married, and it's not marriage for 10 years, but marriage for life. Why not do whatever you can to just like really make sure they really love God? Because nowadays we know that saying I'm a Christian and love God means very little because you don't know, what does that mean? Are you a Orange County Christian? Are you a Middle America Christian? Are you a Spirit-filled Christian? Whatever. And so different convictions pull things out. And the key is if I said, hey, we're not going to kiss till marriage, and she's like, yes, let's do that, and she was so serious and intense, I'd be like, okay, that's where it steps into religion, and it's not fun, and the spirit isn't in this.
Yes.
But when you have high conviction and you're laughing your face off, like God's all over that.
Wow,
come on, Jimmy.
That is so amazing. That was just so inspiring when I heard that, when Mark told me that you guys weren't, you didn't kiss till you guys got married. Yeah. That was so inspiring because when I had a similar encounter with God when I was a freshman in high school, and I just felt like God said, Rachelle, don't date, don't go to even dances and stuff like that, which, all my friends were doing all of that. Yeah. And until I felt like I was going to meet the person that I wanted to be with. And so I didn't do any of that. I didn't date. I didn't go to the dances.
She was 27 when we got married.
I seriously
I was the
first
first guy she held hands with.
Yeah.
First guy she kissed.
Yeah.
First everything.
Yeah.
That's
so,
crazy.
but so when I heard you guys like that story, that was so inspiring because I feel like
So rare.
it's so rare, but I feel like how you explained it, Jimmy, was so beautiful and so profound. Just that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. I think when you have like that fear of God, that's really what happened in my life. I had this fear of God, not like you're scared of God, but that you're aware of him and you don't want to offend him. Mark always gives this example. What is the dove analogy where you have a dove on your shoulder? You want to share that? I thought that was so
Yeah, well, it says the Holy Spirit, descended on Jesus like a dove. It wasn't a dove, but it was like a dove. And I think it was, probably Benny Hinn or Bill Johnson that made this famous, but the idea of walking around with a dove on your shoulder is you would actually, if you were trying to make sure the dove stayed on you, every step you took, you would actually be very aware of the dove. You wouldn't want to spook it. You wouldn't want to freak it out. You wouldn't move suddenly, abruptly to make it jump off your shoulder. If your goal was to keep the dove on you, every step you took, you would be very mindful of the dove's presence. And I think that in many ways is a great picture of fearing God, is that how do I live in a relationship with the Holy Spirit that every decision I'm making with my life, my finances, my integrity, my mind, my sexuality, how am I managing these things in a way that I'm walking through life going, God, I don't want to grieve you. I don't want you to get spooked. I don't want to move so abruptly that I say something to my wife, my girlfriend, or do something that's out of your character that would cause you to lift. And obviously, we're not talking about the manifestation presence of God is different than the omnipresence of God. Obviously, God is everywhere all the time. But what you're talking about, Jimmy, of like, I'm in my prayer closet, I feel close to him. That's the manifest presence. It's that God isn't just here in the room, but I can feel him right now. I can sense him right now. I can hear his voice right now because I'm in right standing with God. And I think many people have a relationship that they believe in God, but they're not walking like he's on your shoulder. And I just think that, that the fearing God is the whole idea of everything I do in my relationships. So I was so blown away because when I got saved, I was 18 too, and our stories are very similar, Jimmy. Obviously, we talked about that we both both lived a pretty wild life in high school. And when we both got saved,
both incredible at sports.
I mean, highly incredible, phenomenal. Obviously, we would have played in the NBA had not the Lord called us to this ministry life. But so when I
turned down GQ as well, right? You were going to be the
there's a lot of things.
Man alive.
I had to put a bunch of stuff on the altar, Jimmy. Okay, but but no, I think it was like night to day. It was darkness to light. And when that light came on, I was the same way. I'm like, I'm not going to date just to date. And I think that's today in our society. And I'm not saying you have to wait to kiss. I think there's something beautiful in that, and I'm all about it. Especially for my daughters. I think, but my thought would be that more than anything, I think there's a problem not with divorce in America. I think that divorce is not a marriage issue. I don't even think it's a dating issue. I think it's who we are before we date and who we are going into dating. It's like you're saying, I think divorce is the house falling over. The reality is the foundation would have been who were you when you were single? So I think a lot of people think, we talked a little bit about this in the last podcast, but I think we put too much emphasis on our promise and not enough emphasis in our preparation. So we could joke, I'm going to go to the Lakers today, put a jersey on and say, guys, I promise I'm putting 30 points up tonight. And I could promise that, but I haven't played basketball in like 5 years. I'm out of shape. Even if I was in shape, I'm not putting 30 points up. Even if I was in shape, I'm gonna embarrass somebody on myself on that court, because my life has not been in preparation for that type of platform.
Yeah.
Good.
And I think there's a lot of people that they mean, their heart is pure. They go, God, I'm going to love this woman the rest of my life, for better, for worse. They promise. The promise is real. Yes. But the reality is they've had 6 relationships. Yeah. They've slept with 10 dudes. They've been test driving every car in dating before they bought it. And then they think all of a sudden, because I think ultimately dating just to date is practice for divorce.
Yeah.
I think just going, hey, I want to date 10 dudes. I want to sleep with 6 girls. Yeah. I want to find out if she's the one, he's the one, by running the gauntlet with them. Yeah. I think the whole Final Rose, The Bachelor, the Bachelorette generation, it's honestly, I think it's so devastating, because I don't think that you date, sleep around, and then all of a sudden find the right one and say, well, I've been with 16 other people, got serious, slept with them, broke up with them, started over again, did it 16 times, and then marry number 17 and think that that's not going to be a cycle that continues. Yeah. I think you have to break the cycle before you go into marriage. So for me, I was 18, had a lot of girlfriends, made a lot of decisions, lost my virginity in high school. And for me, I knew if I don't give my heart to God and my sexuality to God before I meet the right girl, I'm going to bring this habit, this cycle into marriage. Yeah. So I had a Bible professor in college that said, ask the Holy Spirit what type of woman or what you want to marry. And I remember walking into the bathroom right after class was over, looking in the mirror and go, God, I want to marry a girl like Rachelle Wild. I literally prayed like her. Dang. And I'm like, I can't think of anything better than that. Yeah. I didn't have enough faith to think that I was going to marry Rachelle. I'm like, maybe I always joke, maybe I get the Steve Madden version of Gucci. I'm like, just give me someone that's like Rachelle. I had no idea that God would give me the great designer herself. But I think that it's very important to pray, ask the Holy Spirit what you want. Yeah. Yes. And the last little tangent I would say is, your story is like ours, that we were going after Jesus. Proverbs 18:22 says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing, obtains favor from the Lord. The word find doesn't mean that you were searching for it. In the Hebrew language, the idea is you're going after God, and as you're going after him, you look over and your spouse is right there. It's funny, in the kingdom, it feels like people that are thirsty to get married are the ones that usually get married in their 30s or 40s. And the ones that are just going after Jesus seem to be the ones that get married sooner. Yeah. And it's interesting. It's like we put God first and he brings things into the rightful place. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's so deep and so vast, this thing. I love, it's the most beautiful analogy ever. Really like a bow and arrow, the farther you pull it back, the more tension, but the farther it goes when it's released. Yes. And when I think of this whole thing of, well, whether it's waiting to kiss or whatever conviction someone might have, I think it's really like a spider web, the kingdom is. And I feel like, it is true that God turns all things to good for those that love him. And we can learn a lot from our parents' mistakes and our mistakes. We can teach a younger generation. And there's a tremendous value in that. But I think something that can be a little bit underrated is when someone does something the right way, and your dad doesn't say, I did this, and trust me, don't do that, do it this way, versus if he would have walked out a certain area in a conviction. So when I thought about doing this, I was like, man, I also want to do this because I want to have like the authority and the respect from my children to when I'm telling them to do something, they're not like, well, Dad, you did this and that. Like, I want to have a little bit like, dang, I guess you did it. And you're mom and dad, you're amazing. So I want to do that.
So good job.
And then even another aspect outside of kids, family, and that dynamic in the dating thing, I think the Lord looks at these things and he goes, wow, you actually had enough self-control in the area of relationships that you're actually in business now can be responsible for this thing. Yes. And so there's so many things connected to us.
You're right.
Outside of, we're so micro-focused on one thing when heaven is looking at something so broader. And then also just people witnessing things and, wanting to be above reproach, not to bring glory to yourself, but to be like, oh, wow, that that apparently he did meet Jesus and his life does look different than before it did.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think all those things, when it's like, if someone has a beer, like, no, it's not a sin to drink a beer, but to get drunk it is. And so why do I not drink? Because I don't want someone to see me holding a beer can from 50 yards away and assume, wait, maybe he does get drunk. Like, it's different things outside of the thing itself.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily sin. It's more so, how can we look a little different, be above reproach, do it full of joy. But I really, truly believe, God has amazing callings on everyone's life. And it doesn't look like everyone's, gonna, speak in a stadium and be a president or whatever calling someone might have. It could be being a mom or, running a small business somewhere and doing it really faithfully. But I do think there's a supernatural aspect that God wants to manifest and bless on every individual. That's personally up to them, is how far they want to do things and live in secret above reproach to where the Lord can entrust them with that.
Yeah.
Really
So
good, Jimmy.
good.
I agree.
And just like speaking about preparation, like for me, I grew up Catholic, and I always knew that God was there. And it wasn't until I was in college, like my first year of community college, that I got saved. And it was like, I'm Gen Z. Getting saved in college. Like, somebody invited me to a worship night. I just wept my eyes out in front of other young people, which I would have never done before. And so just like taking my life with him from that moment on, it just was like way better like than I could have ever imagined. I was in high school, just like drinking, smoking. Like, I had a longtime boyfriend that was super toxic, and I was just like, giving myself up to people for what? There was I just always felt so empty. And it wasn't until, I gave my life to Jesus. I literally changed my whole friend group. I started serving at my local church, and I just realized, like, Jesus is real. I saw miracles. I saw myself be changed, any type of, like, father wounds when I was little. Like, he restored and redeemed everything. And it wasn't until, like, a couple years into knowing God and just really growing with him that I was like, okay, like, I did it wrong before, right? So I want to do it right. And I just felt like, why even give somebody a kiss? You know what I mean? Like, they're not my husband. Like, why should I even give them like a little piece of me that if I see them around, it's going to be awkward. You know what I mean? So, or even just knowing that they're not my husband. And so for me, my thought was always like, okay, like, I really want to do this, but who am I going to find that wants to, like, not kiss until marriage, Because, like, that's just a really high call. But when he told me that, it was just like, oh, my gosh, like, I've literally thought that, wanted that, desired that. God put that on my heart, and then we get to walk it out together. So that's why it wasn't hard. Like, if it would have been, like, the other way around, where we're, like, trying to convince each other to, like, do this or do that, it was like, we both already had those convictions walking into meeting each other. So then the Lord just allowed us just to have fun and be best friends and know each other in different levels. And it makes so much sense of, like, when you want to spend your whole life with somebody, like, they're going to be your best friend. So why don't you know them for who they are? Something that we always say, which is true, is like, if you go into In-N-Out and you kiss like 10 people, you're going to walk out of there like thinking about at least 5 of them. Why? Because our natural bodies are going to respond to, that type of desire. And so it's like, why even just initiate that?
So good.
And so for me, that was something that I desired, and the Lord, like, blessed me with him, and it's been amazing just to walk that out.
It's already awkward enough running into someone at Trader Joe's that you used to talk to, and now imagine you used to make out with them and you say, oh, hey, Eric, your wife's a great kisser. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, you don't know who you're going to marry until you marry
It's the
them,
truth.
And it's so crazy because, I mean, like, in the beginning, we were all just like in, and we were very much of like, okay, how to have those boundaries where we're not even like close to each other enough to like get to that point or anything. But it was just so natural. Like, we never like had to say anything crazy. It was just like, this is what we're doing. But even a couple months in, like, it really like rewired my brain. Like, I don't know, as like women, you really want to like give and to like, you feel like you have to just like satisfy a man to like make them love you, basically. And so for me, it was like, you don't want me to kiss you. Like, you really do not want me to kiss you. And I don't want to kiss you, but like, it's just, you love me even though there isn't that, And it was like, kind of like, for a couple months, I was like, there's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because it really like took me for a loop of like how it used to be to
That
now
was
with
almost
him.
renewing your mind.
Yeah, renewing my mind. And it was like, oh my gosh, he loves me so much that he does not want to do that with me yet. You know, he wants to honor me like that much.
Yeah.
And so that took me for a loop, but it was just like so amazing to realize like he just loves me for who I am, not for what I can give him.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Collective Talk, where we shared reflections on dating, relationships, and marriage. Stay tuned for future episodes as we dive into topics of prayer, family, and ministry.